Today we'll be joined by President George Washington, who is being played by the talented Mr. Peter Small. In addition to the George Bush Presidential Library, he's performed at Reagan, Nixon, and Ford libraries. Today, as he portrays George Washington, he will tell you about the creation of the Constitution, challenges he faced as the president, and how he helped shape our government's success. So let's give him a warm Texas welcome.
Oh, excuse me, I've just been riding around my plantation here at Mount Vernon, and you know how cold it gets here in December. Why, that is correct. It is already December 12th, 1799. And do you realize in less than 3 weeks, it shall be January 1800, a new year and a new century. And I hope that I shall be well enough to live to see that new century, the 19th century, because I've lived all of my 67 years here in this century, the 18th century, and I hope that I shall be well enough to live to see that new century. Well, I am so delighted to have you here at Mount Vernon, my home here on the banks of the Potomac River, here in my native state of Virginia. Oh, and I happen to have brought along a portrait of me. Oh, and here is a closer view of that portrait. Do you like it? Yes. You do? I do not. Oh, it's terrible. The man who painted it, Gilbert Stuart, look how he made me look so tight-lipped, like I was old and enfeebled. Well, I am an old man already. I am already 67 years old. And I am not enfeebled. I will show you why he painted me so terribly. Excuse me a moment. He made me take out my false teeth. Now, I know that you have heard stories that I had false teeth made out of wood. That is not true. I have several sets of false teeth. One was made from elephant ivory, the other from hippopotamus teeth, and they were connected in the back with a spring. Excuse me a moment. Oh my, that feels so much better. Oh, the stories they tell about me, wooden teeth. Why, another story said I was so strong I could take a silver dollar and toss it across the Delaware River. Or was that the Potomac River? Oh, I do not even remember. And then there is another story, which I am sure you have all heard, that apparently when I was a young child, my father gave me a hatchet like this. And like any little child, I ran around our farm in Virginia chopping up little pieces of wood. And there on our farm stood a sapling, a young fruit tree. Now, was that an orange tree? No, because we do not grow oranges in Virginia. Was it a lemon tree? No, we do not grow those in Virginia either. Avocado? No, it was not that. Was it a pear tree? No. Was it an apple tree? No. Why, my memory has seemed to have failed me. Perhaps you could refreshen it for me. What was it, everyone?
Cherry tree.
Yes, according to the story, it was a cherry tree. And according to that same story, I took my hatchet and I chopped down the cherry tree. And then I ran off and played the rest of the day. Well, you can imagine my father's reaction when he discovered that someone had chopped down his poor young cherry tree. And then he called out, "Who chopped down my cherry tree?" Well, I was young and frightened. What should I do? Should I lie about it? No. What should I do, everyone? That is exactly what I did. I went up to my father and I said, "Father, I cannot tell a lie. I did it." And my father then said to me, "Bless you, George. Bless you for telling the truth." And ever since that day, I have had a reputation for honesty, integrity, for never having told a lie, and always telling the truth. But I shall tell you the truth. Never happened. Oh, no, I will tell you exactly what happened. There is a gentleman out there by the name of Mason Locke Weems. He is a minister. He calls himself Parson Weems. And he has been writing and editing an encyclopedia. Well, as you know, encyclopedias contain many articles of information. Among those articles included my biography, my life story. Well, when Parson Weems was writing my life story, he decided he would add a few extra paragraphs to it, including the story of the cherry tree. Now, why would he write about a story about me that had no basis of fact at all? Well, you must understand that he has very good and honorable intentions. You must remember that in this year of 1799, we are still a very young nation. True, we have grown from 13 to now 16 states in our union, but we do not always think of ourselves as being one nation and one people, Americans. We still tend to think of ourselves as being Rhode Islanders, South Carolinians, New Yorkers, Virginians, Marylanders, Pennsylvanians, instead of thinking of ourselves as Americans. And Parson Weems wanted me to be a symbol, especially to you children and young people, that no matter who you are, where you live, or where you are from, you would all look up to me as the unifying symbol of this nation. And I have tried to be honest throughout my life, and I have tried to tell the truth, and I've tried to be of service to my fellow citizens. And again, Parson Weems wanted me to be a symbol to you children and young people, that you would follow my example of being of service to your fellow citizens and fellow Americans. Now, when I was born, there was no United States of America. We were colonies of Great Britain, and we regarded ourselves as being, well, loyal Englishmen. Why, I recall one of the first books I read and copied verbatim was an etiquette on etiquette for becoming an English gentleman, because that is what I aspired to be. When I was 14 years old, I wanted to enlist in the British Navy and serve in His Majesty's fleet. But my older half-brother Lawrence and my mother convinced me not to do so. So I became a surveyor. I would go out, explore, measure, and map the new unexplored lands of Western Virginia. And when I became an adult, I wanted to be an officer in His Majesty's Army. But as a colonist, the only way I could achieve that was to enlist in the militia of the colony of Virginia. I believe you would call that the National Guard of your day. Well, I became an officer. But at this time in the 1750s, there were great tensions between the two major powers of Europe, Britain and France. They were longtime rivals and enemies, and they were competing for power, not just in Europe, but for an empire here in North America. And as it happened, the French had built forts on British territory in western Pennsylvania. So the royal governor of Virginia sent me and my militiamen out into western Pennsylvania to tell the British to leave, to tell the French to leave British territory. We confronted the French soldiers, had a shooting incident, and you know, I have to tell you, there is something romantic about the whistling of bullets going by me. But that's before I found out how terrible and horrible war really is. But because of this incident, a war broke out between Britain and France. It lasted for 7 years. In Europe, it was remembered as the 7 Years' War. And of course, here in North America, we remember it as the French and Indian War. Well, I thought, Here is my opportunity to show what type of a brave soldier I could be for His Majesty King George of England. But I had many, many lessons to learn. And to show you what happened, what I need from among you are 6 strong, brave volunteers who are ready to fight for His Majesty King George of England. Oh, very good. Let's start up there in the back. Very good. All right, let's start. Okay. Okay, yes, right here. All right, yes, please come on down. All right. How about right here? Okay, let's. All right. Oh, right there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Get 3 more. Yes. Right there. Okay, right here. And then one more right here. Very good. Very good. Let's line up here in one line, soldiers. Very good. Very good. Soldiers, okay, let's stand at attention. Are you ready to fight for His Majesty King George of England?
Yes.
What is the correct answer, everybody? Yes? Are you ready to fight for His Majesty King George of England?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Now you have to remember, I never led men into combat before, and all I knew about fighting was what I had read in books, and my inexperience was to be demonstrated. I led my soldiers out into western Pennsylvania, where we built a fort. We called it Fort Necessity. It was a palisade. It was made up from trees that we had chopped down from the forest, and we will show you what it looked like. Soldiers, make a circle around me. Very good. So we built this fort. As I said, Fort Necessity, a palisade, as you can see. Well, soon we were attacked by the French army. Now remember, they were experienced, professional, well-equipped, well-trained soldiers of the King of France attacking us inexperienced and poorly equipped and poorly supplied militiamen. As I said, we were surrounded. We ran out of ammunition. And do you know what I was forced to do with my first military command? What do you think happened, everyone? Worse than backing down or retreating, I surrendered. I gave up. Well, the French commander felt so sorry for me. After all, who was I? Nothing more than a poor, young, and inexperienced colonial militiaman. He allowed me and my men to retreat back to the British lines, promising never to attack the forces of His Majesty the King of France. But do you think I was going to listen to him? No. But I had more lessons to learn. Because you see, in North America, wars were to be fought very differently than they were fought in Europe, as we shall show you. All right, I'd like the 3 of you to stand right here like that. Very good. And the 3 of you, stand right there. Stand right there. Stand right next to him. Right there. Very good. Now, in Europe, when armies fought, they fought out in the open, in a field of battle, where the 2 opposing armies could see one another. They would approach each other in formation, and when they came in within sight of one another, they'd wait for the order of the commanding officer. They would take out their rifles. Soldiers, take out your rifles. They'd wait. Oh, no, this way. There's the enemy. Not them. This is the enemy. They would take out their rifles, wait for the order of the commanding officer, and then aim and fire at one another. That is how they fought in Europe. All right, soldiers, put your arms down. You see, the Indians were the allies of the French. The Indians were helping the French. Do the Indians fight like this out in the open? No. They fight by hiding behind rocks and trees and ambushing and surprising their enemy. And the French would adopt and use those tactics against us with deadly results. All right, soldiers, I want you to make a line right along here, facing that way. And squat down. Pretend you're hiding behind rocks and trees. All right? And then when I give the order, you'll fire. The French had built a fort out in western Pennsylvania, at the junction of two strategic rivers, the Monongahela and Allegheny rivers. At that point, they formed the Ohio River. There they built a fort called Fort Duquesne, although I understand they call it by a different name today. I understand they now call Fort Duquesne, Pittsburgh in western Pennsylvania. Well, we were determined to capture Fort Duquesne, but we were not going to be led by inexperienced colonial militiamen. No, this time we were going to be led by regular British soldiers, well-trained, experienced, professional, well-equipped British soldiers, led by a brave British commander named General Braddock. General Braddock led us out towards Fort Duquesne, but the French were not waiting for us at the fort. They were waiting for us behind rocks and trees, and when we marched by, they opened and fired. Start shooting. General Braddock was shot and killed. I had 2 horses shot out from under me. 2/3 of our force were killed, and the remaining 1/3 I led in retreat back to the British line. There we secretly buried General Braddock in a spot that the French soldiers would not find him. Later on, under Colonel Forbes, we went out with a stronger force, and after heavy fighting, defeated the French and captured Fort Duquesne. And after 7 years of fighting, Britain defeated France and now controlled all of North America. And for that, soldiers, I want to thank you for your service and loyalty to His Majesty King George. And I'd like a salute, please. Thank you. And you may now return to your homes. Now, the war was over, but there were many changes, not just here in North America, but in my own personal life. First of all, my older half-brother Lawrence had died, and since he had no sons or heirs to inherit or receive his property, I inherited his property, this estate of Mount Vernon, where we are today. One moment. Here on the banks of the Potomac River, here in my native state of Virginia. I've since expanded the size of this home, increased the size of the home, as well as increasing my land holdings, and it is now one of the great plantations and farms here in Virginia. Here I raise all sorts of crops and livestock, but I do not do it all alone. No, besides having a large staff, I have a very important life partner to help me, my dear wife, Martha. Now, when I met her, she was a lovely young widow by the name of Martha Dandridge Custis. And we soon fell in love, and we have been married for more than 40 years. And when I married Martha, she had 2 surviving children from her first marriage, Jack and Patsy. Although Martha and I would never have children of our own, I raised and loved Jack and Patsy as if they were my own natural children. Unfortunately, they are no longer with us today. Patsy died of seizures when she was 17, and Jack was an officer with me when we were fighting the British at Yorktown in 1781, and disease spread through the camp, and Jack did not survive. But he left me his 2 young children, little Washington and Nellie Custis, and I have raised and loved them as if they were my own natural children. I also became involved in the affairs of the colony of Virginia. I was elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses. That was our colonial assembly where we helped govern and make laws for the colony of Virginia. But because of its victory over France, Britain now controlled all of North America. They needed to station soldiers here in North America, and whom do you think they expected to pay for it? Yes, us, the colonists. And how would they do that? How would they do that, everyone? By taxes. And who imposed and made these taxes upon us? Yes, it was the King George and particularly the Parliament in London, England. Yes, a parliament that was elected in England and that claimed to represent all Englishmen. But this parliament that was elected and sat in England, did any of them speak for us? No. Did we elect anyone to represent us in that parliament? No. Was this right or fair that they make laws and taxes upon us, controlling our lives and our business and our trade? No. So we began to speak out against these unfair laws and unfair taxes. We petitioned the British King in Parliament for redress of our grievances, but our protests and petitions were ignored by both King and Parliament. Eventually the cry went out from the colonies, no taxation without representation. As I said, we protested to the King and Parliament, but they refused to listen to us. And then in April of 1775, the King and Parliament sent their army and navy against the good people of the colony of Massachusetts. We of the 13 American colonies decided to take action. We met as a Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that spring of 1775. I was elected one of several delegates from the colony of Virginia. It was there we voted to raise a Continental Army to resist and fight back against British aggression. We also needed someone to lead this new Continental Army. Now, many delegates felt that since the war began in the North in Massachusetts, that for the purposes of national unity, we should have a commander-in-chief from the South and one who had military experience. See, Virginia is in the South. I'm from Virginia. I have military experience, but I said nothing to promote my own candidacy. But while they were discussing who this Southerner with military experience should be, I just happened to be wearing my colonel's militia uniform. So when they were looking for that Southerner with military experience, why, whom do you think they all chose? Yes, they chose me, George Washington, to be commander-in-chief of the new Continental Army. And when they asked me, Mr. Washington, oh, pardon us, General Washington, how much shall we pay you? How much of a salary do you desire? I said, I want no salary, for I'm doing this in the service of a cause that I believe in. All I asked was that the Congress pay for my expenses. Well, I took command of our new Continental Army outside of Boston, Massachusetts in the late spring of 1775. The British Army had occupied the city of Boston. The British Navy had blockaded and closed Boston Harbor. We were facing the greatest military empire in the world. We had no navy, not much of an army. How could we resist or fight back against such a mighty power? Well, that winter in northern New York, Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys had captured Fort Ticonderoga, the strongest fortress in all of North America. So we took the cannons from Fort Ticonderoga, brought them over the Berkshire Mountains across Massachusetts to our positions outside of Boston. There we set up our cannons, where the British Army and Navy could clearly see them. And when they saw those heavy artillery pieces and cannons, the British Army evacuated, left the city of Boston, boarded the ships, and then the ships sailed out of and withdrew from Boston Harbor. We entered and liberated the city of Boston without firing a single shot. We had won a great victory, but we had not yet won the war. The following year, on July 4th, 1776, we declared ourselves to be the free and independent United States of America. But the year we declared our independence, we nearly lost it. I took command of our army in New York City. The British Army had sailed into New York Harbor and attacked our forces at Brooklyn. They defeated us at the Battle of Long Island, and we retreated across the East River into Manhattan Island. They attacked us at Kips Bay and Harlem Heights, and we retreated north of the city to White Plains. We were defeated at the Battle of White Plains, and we retreated across the Hudson River into New Jersey. We were forced to evacuate and give up Fort Lee, and we retreated across New Jersey, across the Delaware River into Pennsylvania, and by now it was late December of 1776. Every battle we had fought that year, we had lost. 6 months earlier, I had 20,000 soldiers under my command, and now only 2,000 remained. And their enlistments, that is the time they had signed up to fight, would end in a week's time on January 1st, 1777. I even wrote to my surviving brother, I felt as if the game was over. And here it is. It is already December 25th. And you know what that date is. What is that date, everyone? Christmas Day. And did we have any reason to celebrate? No. But 10 miles south of us, 10 miles down the river, and across the river in Trenton, New Jersey, were the Hessians, the paid German soldiers of the British Army. They would have much to celebrate that winter and that Christmas, and why not? They had defeated us in every battle we had fought that year. And I could imagine what their Christmas would be like. They would be eating, drinking, celebrating, making merry. And wait, they would be eating, drinking, and celebrating. Would they be ready to fight? No, unless I could get my army across the Delaware River. It will not be easy, for you see, there are no bridges across the Delaware. The river is moving very fast, is very high and fast, and if we were to fall in, we would all freeze to death. But if I could get my army, or the remnants of my army, across the Delaware River, march on Trenton, and surprise the Hessians in the morning, perhaps we can turn the tide of battle. But in order to do that, I need from among you 6 new, strong volunteers who are ready to fight for the cause of independence and liberty. Oh, very good. I am glad to see the spirit of independence is still alive. Let's see. Oh, my, oh, my. Let's see. About right there. Okay. And right there. Okay. Okay, right here. Oh, right there. Yeah. Right there. Oh, very good. All right, put your hands down. Oh, please, let's get right up here. Oh, very good. I am happy to see the spirit of independence and liberty is still alive. Soldiers, make a line right along here. Soldiers, I know you are cold and freezing, and I know we do not have much to celebrate this Christmas, but are you ready to follow me across the Delaware River, march on Trenton, and attack the Hessians in the morning?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Let's get on our boat. Soldier, I need you to stand right here, facing this way. Very good. Soldier, I need you right here. All right, facing that way. All right. Here. Soldier, I need you. Oh, I see you are prepared for the winter. Yes, very good. Stand right over here. Very good. Soldier, I need you right over here, facing that way. Soldier, I need you right over here. Very good. Soldier, I need you standing right here, facing that way. All right, soldiers, get out your oars and let's start rowing. We have 2,000 men we need to get across tonight. Okay, and let's start moving together slowly forward. Let's move. Very good. We have to get over to the New Jersey shore. Now watch out. Okay. Very good. Very good. All right. All right. Very good. We have reached the New Jersey shore. And now let's form 2 lines. 1, 2, 3, facing that way. Okay, and form a line. Yes. Right. Yeah. Right here. Okay. Yeah. You get right here in front. Very good. All right, soldiers. We now have 10 miles to march through a storm before we reach Trenton in the morning. Attention! Forward march! 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Company, halt! Right face. Shoulder arms. Get out your rifles. When I give the order, first row. When I give the order, ready, aim, fire. Second row. When I give the order, ready, aim, fire. Very good. All right, cease fire, cease fire. Just as I had suspected, the Hessians were sleeping off from their Christmas celebration. We surprised them that morning, defeating them without losing a single one of our own soldiers. A week later, we again defeated the British at Princeton in New Jersey, and we kept the cause of independence alive throughout 1777. But later that year, at Brandywine in Germantown in Pennsylvania, the British Army again defeated us, and again we were forced to retreat into Pennsylvania to a place called Valley Forge. Come, soldiers, let's make a circle around the campfire. Let's try to warm up around that fire. Oh, there would be no counterattack as last winter, for you see, the British were on the same bank, the same side of the Delaware River as we were, nearby in Philadelphia. They were well fed, well supplied, well clothed, well housed, while we were freezing in the fields and forests of Valley Forge. We were forced to chop down trees, to build log cabins to shelter my men. Our supplies were low. My men were ragged. Disease spread through the camp. And there were times I felt I had to call upon divine guidance to give us the faith and the strength to make it through that winter. And we had the faith and the strength to make it through that winter. From Europe, 2 new officers came to join me. One was a young French nobleman who became one of my trusted generals. Perhaps you have heard of him, the Marquis de Lafayette. The other was a nobleman from the German state of Prussia. While he claimed to be a nobleman, he called himself Baron von Steuben. Now, he had been an officer in the Prussian army, and you know how those Prussians and Germans, how well disciplined they are. And if our army was to survive, we would need that discipline and need to be drilled. And that is what now Colonel von Steuben did. Soldiers, make a line right along here, facing this way. Very good. Attention. Left face. Forward march. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Company, halt. About face. This way. I have a feeling this is going to be a long war and a long winter. Soldiers, attention. Forward march. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Company, halt. Left face. At ease. That means put your hands behind your back and spread your legs like that. All winter we trained and drilled. By the spring we were ready to fight. At Monmouth in New Jersey in June of 1778, we defeated the British Army, forcing them to retreat back to New York City. In the meantime, France wanted revenge for its earlier loss in the French and Indian War. So we signed a treaty of alliance with France. They declared war on Great Britain. With the help of the French Army and Navy, we surrounded the British at Yorktown in Virginia in October of 1781. And there, the British commander, Lord Cornwallis, was forced to surrender to me. Well, actually, he didn't. He sent his second-in-command out to surrender, so I sent my second-in-command out to accept his surrender. But 2 years later, we signed a peace treaty with Great Britain, recognizing our independence and finally ending the war. And then, on November 25th, 1783, I gave my resignation as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army to the Continental Congress. And then at Faunce's Tavern in New York, in December of that same year, I said farewell to my officers. Thank you for your support. Thank you for fighting for liberty. Thank you for fighting for independence. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your loyalty. Thank you for making us a free nation. And with that, Soldiers, I'd like to give you I'd like to give each other one last final salute. You are dismissed, and you may now return to your homes. Now, many of you probably believe that I'm a good general. Do you think so? Yes. Well, do you know I lost more battles than I won? Does that sound like a good general? Yes. No. I will tell you why I was a good general. I knew how to retreat and keep my army together. As long as I kept the Continental Army together, I kept the cause of independence alive, even if we were defeated in battle. As long as we made an orderly retreat, we would be ready to fight the next battle, the important one, that would give us victory. Now we were an independent nation, the 13 United States of America. Unfortunately, we were not very united. Yes, we did have a national government under the Articles of Confederation, but it was not a very strong government. Well, we did not want a strong national government. We had suffered under that with the king and parliament, and we did not want to repeat that again here in our new United States of America. But the problem with the Congress under the Articles of Confederation, it had very little power to enforce its power or authority or to collect taxes. Why? You needed 9 of the 13 states just to pass or approve anything. You know how difficult it is to get 9 men to agree on anything, let alone 9 states or delegations. And it was confusing. Look at this. Each state was printing and making its own currency, its own money. Is this a formula for national unity? Each state printing its own money? No, not at all. And if you bought it, and for example, if you had $1 from, say, here, you hold this for me, please, sir? Hold this up so everyone can see it. For example, if you had $1 from Delaware, now, a dollar, if I am correct, should equal, hold this up, please, 25, 50, 75, 80, 100 cents, correct? Now, but with each state printing its own money, its value changed from state to state. If I had $1 from Delaware, well, yes, that's right. Virginia might only give me 75 cents. Maybe North Carolina will give me 80 cents. Perhaps New Jersey will give me 90 cents. Does this make sense to anybody? No. And if you bought an item in one state and brought it into another, you would have to pay a tax on it as if you brought it in from overseas. Were we acting like one nation or not? No. And what have happened if we were attacked by a foreign enemy? How could we unite in face of such a danger? We realized the very independence and liberties that we had fought for as a nation could be lost. We realized that we needed to come up with a new constitution, a new plan of government. So, in the spring and summer of 1787, we met in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at the Pennsylvania State House, which I believe some of you refer to today as, Independence Hall. Yes, the same place we had declared independence 11 years earlier. We were now meeting to write a new constitution or plan of government. I was elected the president of that convention. My job was to keep order at the convention. I did not participate in any of the debates or discussions. That was not my job. My job? Keep the delegates on task to write a new constitution or plan of government. We also kept the meetings private and secret, not to trick or deceive the public, but by keeping it private and secret, we could speak more freely with each other about the type of government we wanted. Now, we certainly did not want to give all power to a national government. We knew how dangerous that was. nor could we give it to the states. That had proven to be unsuccessful. We realized that powers had to be shared between the states and the national government. Nor did we want to put all power into the hands of one person or one body of government. We knew how dangerous that was. So, for the next 4 months, we argued, debated, eventually negotiating and compromising until we came up with a new plan of government. But there were days I wondered if we would ever succeed at all. And I recall one day at that convention, one delegate got up to speak. For you see, he was the oldest delegate to that convention, and he was also probably its wisest. For you see, at that time, he was probably the most recognized and respected American in the world. He was a printer, a publisher, an author, philosopher, scientist, inventor, and statesman. I'm sure many of you know whom I'm talking about. Dr. Benjamin Franklin of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Well, Dr. Franklin looked at my chair, and he saw carved into the back a half sun. He could not tell if that half sun was a setting sun or if it was a rising sun. But he hoped for our new nation that it would be a rising sun. And when we were finished, we finally came up with this document, a federal constitution for the United States of America. When someone asked Dr. Franklin, "What do you have for us?" he said, "A republic, if you can keep it." Now, this was a new plan of government, a new experiment in government, where government would be divided among 3 equal branches. And to show you how that works, I'm going to need 3 people of equal size. All right, let's see if we can find them. Very, oh my, how about, yeah, come on now. Okay. Okay, yeah. Or, and we'll get one more on the other side. Right here. Right, here we are. Come on over here. Here, put this over. Put this on. Put this on. There we are. Very good. Put this on right here. And all right, very good. What we did was we divided the government among 3. Here, we'll move down a little more this way so everyone can see us. Very good. We divided the government into 3 equal branches of government. The Congress to make laws, the President to enforce the laws, and the Supreme Court to interpret the laws, to decide what did those laws mean. Did they agree or not with the Constitution? As I said, Congress could pass laws, and the President had the power to approve or veto, that is, disapprove those laws. But 2/3 of both houses of Congress could override and pass those laws, and the Supreme Court could decide what did those laws mean and did they agree or not with the Constitution. Now, the President was Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy. Only Congress had the power to declare war. The President could nominate cabinet members, federal judges, and ambassadors with the advice and consent, that is, the approval of the Senate. The President could negotiate and sign treaties with foreign nations, but they had to be ratified, that is, approved by 2/3 of the Senate. The idea behind this is called checks and balances, and these 3 are going to show you what I mean by checks and balances. Okay, I want each of you to make a triangle. Take each other's hand and create a triangle. Go ahead. Yes. Now I'd like you to have a tug of war. Pull at each other. Pull as hard as you can. Sometimes the Congress wants more power. Sometimes the President does. Sometimes the Supreme Court. But do you see how they balance each other out? No, that's very good. That's exactly what I wanted to show. Did you see how they balanced each other out? That is how our government is supposed to work. So no one branch gets more powerful than the other. That is the idea behind our new government and constitution. Now, Under the Constitution, a president was to be chosen. How? The states choose electors according to their congressional representation, and the electors then choose the president. Well, when all the electors met, whom do you think they all chose? Yes, they chose me. It was a unanimous vote. All the electors voted for me. Well, I was very honored to be elected our new president under our new federal constitution, but I had a big problem and challenge before me. Did we ever have a president before? No. Did I have an example to follow? No. So whatever I did as president would be an example for future presidents. For example, people did not even know how I should be addressed as president. Your Excellency, Your Highness, Your Majesty. Do you like any of those titles? No, they sound too formal and too royal. It sounds like a what, everyone? A king. And I have no desire to be a king. I'm an elected representative of you, the people. And yet we should show respect for the president. So when people ask me how I should be addressed as president, well, what do you think that what title I should use? Yes, sir. Sir, that's nice, but we call it gentleman, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. President. I like that. Simple but respectful. Now, the Constitution also says that I'm to have advisors. Now, does that mean I'm to have a First Lord of the Admiralty, Chancellor of the Exchequer, ministers? Now, I don't like that, because what does that sound like, everyone? A king. And I have no desire, nor do I want to be a king. But we do need someone to head our new federal departments. Now let's see, to handle foreign relations. I know a Secretary of State. I know a very good candidate. He wrote our Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson. To handle money, we need a Secretary of the Treasury. I know another good man. He was an aide of mine during our War of Independence and has very good ideas about business, Alexander Hamilton. To handle the Army, a Secretary of War, my artillery commander, Henry Knox, and to handle legal affairs, an Attorney General, Edmund Randolph of Virginia. But the problem was, Mr. Jefferson and Mr. Hamilton had very headstrong ideas about government. Mr. Hamilton believed in a strong central government, and Mr. Jefferson believed in states' rights. But I saw my job and role as president is not to support Mr. Jefferson or Mr. Hamilton or any section or region of the nation, but to do what was best for the entire nation. Actually, I don't like this idea of political parties, because I believe they will lead to disunity in our nation. And now, after serving one term of 4 years as president, my term was about to end, and I was ready to return to Mount Vernon and become return to civilian life. But people around the nation were urging me. They were begging me, no, Mr. Washington, no, Mr. President, you must remain as president. Only you can hold our new nation together. And even Jefferson and Hamilton, who never agreed on anything, both urged me to stand for re-election and remain as president. So very reluctantly, I agreed to stand for re-election as president. The electors met again. I was re-elected president, and in March 4th of 1793, I was sworn in for a second term as President of the United States. But later that year, we had a crisis in Europe. Britain and France were again at war, and my nation, as well as my cabinet, was divided on whether we should support Britain or France. Now, Mr. Hamilton felt we should support Britain in such a war because we trade, we do commerce, we do business with Britain. Mr. Jefferson felt differently. He said, no, we signed a treaty of alliance with France. They helped us out in our cause of independence, and now they were experiencing and having their own revolution in their own nation, inspired by our revolution. So what should I do? Should I support Britain or France? Well, many people felt we should support France. But if we become involved in a war in Europe, it could threaten our own very liberties and independence. So I issued a proclamation of neutrality and said we would be neutral in world affairs and not take sides. Why, even in my farewell address, I wrote that we should not be involved with entangling alliances, and I hope that my successors will follow the wisdom of that policy. Now it was 1796. Do you know what people wanted me to do for a third time? Yes, serve a third term as president. Oh, do they not realize at the beginning of a third term in March of 1797, I would be 65 years old. I'm an old man already. I have been president for 8 years, commander-in-chief of the Continental Army for 8 years. I do not wish to be or want to be president for life. I do not want to be a king. Do you know what I want to be? I want to be like you, a private citizen again, and return to my home in Mount Vernon and spend my final days with my family and friends. So I said, no third term for me. So in March of 1797, John Adams, who was my vice president, had been elected the second president, and he was sworn in as our second president of the United States. And I would like to thank the three of you for helping form our new government. Take off the signs. Thank you. You may sit down. Thank you very much. Now, when I was first inaugurated as president in 1789, our capital was in New York City. The following year, we moved our capital to Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, which as of this date, 1799, is still our temporary national or federal capital. But in 1793, we began to build a new permanent seat of government, a new permanent capital. We are locating it, just north of my home of Mount Vernon, just north of my home of Mount Vernon, about 10 miles north on the banks of the Potomac River between Maryland and Virginia. We are going to call it the District of Columbia. Now, as president in 1793, I laid the cornerstone of what will be our new Capitol building, where the Congress and Supreme Court will meet and work. I laid another cornerstone of what will be the President's house, this big white house we are building for the President. Now, I will never live there as president because, well, I've already been president, and believe me, I do not wish to be president again. But I understand that this new capital city will be completed by next year, and I understand they're going to call the city in that district, they're going to name it after me, Washington, D.C. But but I hope that I shall be well enough to live to see President Adams and the Congress and the Cabinet and the Supreme Court move into that new capital city next year, and I hope that I shall be well enough to see that. But you will have to forgive me. I am not feeling well, and I need to go into the house, and I believe Mrs. Washington will have to take care of me. But thank you all very much for coming to Mount Vernon, and I hope you enjoy the new year and the new century. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I understand some of the people here have some questions for me. And I understand that we do have two people to help assist in asking those questions. If you have any questions for me, George Washington, about my life or my times or my presidency, if my health will permit me, I will do my best to answer them. Yes, I see we have a young man right here.
How old were you when you died?
How old am I? How old am I when I die? Well, I'm now 67 years old. And when I die, that will be for the good Lord to decide.
When were you born?
Where was I born? I was born when was I born? I was born on February 22nd, 1732. That was according to the present calendar we use, the Gregorian calendar. But did you know I was actually born on February 11th? Well, that was according to the Julian calendar. You see, when I was born, Great Britain was using the Julian calendar, and by the time I became an adult, it changed over to the Gregorian calendar, so my birthday was moved 11 days to February 22nd. I think we see some hands back there.
Why did you cut down the cherry tree?
Why did I cut down the cherry tree? Well, did I really cut down the cherry tree? No, it was just a story. But if you were 6 years old and your father gave you a hatchet, what would you do? I rest my case.
When was your first day as president?
My first day as president? The presidential term actually begins on March 4th, but I needed time to travel to New York City, which was then our capital, and I was actually sworn in on April 30th, 1789.
How old were you when you got elected for the military?
Yes, I was 57 years old when I was elected and eventually sworn in as President of the United States.
Why did your dad give you a hatchet?
Why? Well, we lived on a farm, and we needed those tools to help chop wood. Why, do you not chop wood to heat up your home? Well, you must be freezing in your home if you do not chop up wood.
What was it like to be president?
What was it like to be president? It was a great honor to serve my nation as president.
How old was your son when he died?
My son was about 26 when he died, or my stepson was.
How many speeches did you do in your presidency?
How many? Well, whatever was needed. I would, of course, give a State of the Union address to the Congress, as is required by the Constitution. So that was every year. So if I did that for 8 years, as well as any other public addresses I had to give, I never made a count of them. I think we have some questions on this side of the room.
Why did everyone pick you to be president every single year?
Excellent question. Why was I chosen to be president? Well, most people would think because I was a great war hero, correct? That is one reason why. Another reason why, I could be trusted with power. Remember, I'd been commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. When we defeated Britain, I could have become a king. Could I not? I refused to do so. I resigned as commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. I gave up that job. And you know, when King George found that out, he said I would go down in history as the greatest man because I gave up power. That is the other reason why I was elected president, because I could be trusted with power. They knew I would not abuse it or take advantage of it. Excuse me?
How old was your daughter?
How old was my daughter? What, when she passed away?
Your stepdaughter.
Yes, she was about 17.
What was the name of your real mom and dad?
Excuse me?
What was the name of your mom and dad?
What was the name of my parents? Yes, Augustine Washington, and my mother, her maiden name was Mary Ball. Oh, and by the way, I should mention this. My father, Augustine Washington, was married twice. His first wife died, and his second wife was my mother, Mary Ball.
What did you die from?
Well, as I said, that will be for the good Lord to decide when and how I die. I just hope that if I have to go to bed and Martha takes care of me, you know, if I'm very ill, why the doctors may have to bleed me to get rid of those diseased blood cells.
Did you live in Virginia your whole life?
Yes, I did. I was born near what is today Fredericksburg in Virginia. I grew up there, and then, of course, eventually I inherited my brother's home of Mount Vernon, where we are today.
What was your favorite thing about being president?
Well, as I said, It was an honor to serve my countrymen and to set an example for future presidents.
All right, guys. Well, we are out of time, but how about one more round of applause for George Washington?
Thank you, thank you. And I'd like to thank all of you, first of all, for those very good questions, and thank you all very much for coming to Mount Vernon today.
Thank you all for coming, and we hope to see y'all again at our other programs soon. Have a good day.